Unless you're living under a rock, then you know that Special Counselor Robert Mueller announced that he would be indicting Manafort, Gates, and Papadopoulos, and one individual who is a big fan of Team Trump is Pat Robertson, host of the 700 Club, which I thought was a religious show, but it seems like it's more about politics and social commentary than anything. But nonetheless, Pat Robertson decided that he wanted to offer Donald Trump some advice on how to escape indictment or any criminal charges at all. And what he said was just, it was amazing. So take a look.
Manafort is an easy target, if I can use that term. He has clearly been an agent of foreign governments. They have paid him huge amounts of money, and the chances are he hasn't appropriately registered as an agent. And so there's a technical violation that they could get him on. And that may be what they're going after, and then one of his aides. But as far as the White House, not a chance. And there's, again, an op-ed today in the newspaper about what the president's power is. He can grant a pardon to everybody involved in this thing if he wants to. And there's no such thing as the president obstructing justice if he talks to one of his people in the Justice Department. They're part of the administration's force. That's his side of the aisle under the Constitution. So this whole thing has got to be shut down, and I think they've got what they call the fruit of the poisonous tree. We had that in law school. You learn that when the source is tainted, then everything that comes out of that source is tainted. And that Fusion GPS dossier is tainted. And the source of the money coming from the Democratic Party makes it tainted. It isn't a clear, independent dossier. And this means that every indictment, like the General Flynn, that came out of that source is tainted. And they've got to quash any indictments or any interrogatories that result from that. And so most of that stuff's going to get shut down. And I just believe the president has got to shut this thing down. It's a distraction. He is chief executive officer of the United States of America. He's got to do the nation's business. We are faced with crucial things around the world. We have several areas of conflict that he's got to deal with. And we have huge matters at home that have got to get our nation moving. We cannot have this destruction. And I think he has every right to shut Mueller down and say, you've gone as far as you need to. And I have instructed my Justice Department to close you down. He can do it. And he also, you know, the article today of a couple of lawyers was saying he can grant a blanket pardon for everybody involved in everything and say, all right, I pardon them all, you know, case closed, it's all over. And I think that's what he needs to do. And I think we will see. It may not be till the first of next year before he gets to it, but he's got to shut this thing down. He's just got to.
So the very first question that I have for Pat Robertson is, would you be saying the same thing if Obama was still president? What if Hillary Clinton were elected and Robert Mueller was investigating her? Would you say the same thing then? Because you said here there's no such thing as the president obstructing justice if he talks to someone in the Justice Department. They're part of the administration's force. So would you still come to that same conclusion if your team wasn't in the White House right now? Probably not. And I hate to break it to you, but there is such a thing of obstructing justice. And even though it is the case that the Justice Department is technically an arm of the executive branch, they're still supposed to have autonomy and independence when it comes to these types of investigations. Now, Pat Robertson really went crazy when he stated this: Trump has every right to shut Mueller down and say you've gone as far as you need to, and I've instructed my Justice Department to close you down. And Trump can issue a blanket pardon on everyone and say, I pardon them all, case closed, it's all over, and I think that's what he needs to do. So you are tacitly endorsing the idea that powerful people who are overtly corrupt, like Paul Manafort, overt corruption, that they should get away with crimes? Is that what you're honestly saying? So what if it's the case that Michael Flynn is also guilty and Donald Trump is guilty with corrupt business dealings? You're saying that powerful people should be allowed to get away with committing crimes while the peasants get locked up? Is that what you're really saying? It seems like it. And again, I can't help but think that he probably would come to a different conclusion if Robert Mueller was investigating someone else, someone he didn't like. Now, I too, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton, obviously. I'm not a fan of President Obama. But if there was evidence that they committed corruption, you know damn well that Pat Robertson would be all on board with that investigation. And there are some elements of the Trump-Russia investigation that do appear to be a witch hunt. It's no secret that the Democratic Party has resorted to red baiting. They become neo-McCarthyists, and that is a problem. But I do think that this investigation is important, especially after it expanded to look into Donald Trump's corrupt business dealings, or potential corrupt business dealings that we all know he probably has in Russia. But I mean, if this investigation doesn't yield that result, then oh well. All I'm saying is that we have to stop playing team politics in this country. We have to all come to the conclusion that justice in America should be applied equally to everyone, regardless if they are in power, regardless if they are rich and wealthy. That's something that we've all got to come to the conclusion of in this country, because currently it's always the case that these rich oligarchs and Wall Street, they get away with everything, while there are still people across the country being locked up because they smoked weed or sold weed. It's unacceptable. But Pat Robertson is all in favor of obstruction justice and allowing rich elites and oligarchs and people in power to get away with committing crimes. Unacceptable. And we all know that if this wasn't Donald Trump in power, if it was Hillary Clinton in the White House, he would be saying something completely different. He'd probably be chanting, "Lock her up." So, look, Pat Robertson is an absolute clown. Nobody takes him seriously, but I still think it's important to at least showcase what he's saying, because even though he is a lunatic, this loyalty, this blind loyalty, this partisan hackery that we see from Pat Robertson, this is the cult-like level of worship we see from Donald Trump and his supporters. And to be fair, it's not just Donald Trump, it's also Hillary Clinton and whatnot. But I think it's important that we call out these people and let them know that their biases, it's making them look completely foolish. I think this is the perfect example of blind loyalty and how you completely lose your sense of objectivity to play team politics and, help your team win and the other team lose. And it's dumb. I can't not make fun of him. He is a real life troll.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.